What's up, guys? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Over the Top Rope on the Win Column Sports Network. Suplex!
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 35 of the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network. Over the Top Rope, we officially have reached more episodes, at least for the next couple of weeks, than WrestleManias.
It actually is a milestone.
We've done very, very well. We are officially older than the flagship event in wrestling, I suppose, which makes complete sense with us being the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network.
So 35, what was the first WrestleMania? Was that 84?
WrestleMania 1.
Yeah. Well, I know it. Go to hell, Spencer.
Come on, that was good.
I'm going to start cursing way earlier than usual in this show.
I've upset you.
But was it sincerely like 1984? Was it 85? I know it was mid-80s. Like,
yeah, it'd be 84.
Okay. When was that? When was the WCW, or was it WCW or NWA crossover with one of the Japanese wrestling companies?
I'm genuinely not sure, Hayden. But
Well,
as mentioned, let's get this out of the way first.
Okay.
It is Spencer and Hayden. We've semi-introduced ourselves, but we are your usual hosts of Over the Top Rope, OTTR, on Backbreaker Media. We are the brothers of discussion, and we are proudly sponsored by Beercade YEG, where just over 2 weeks from today, a week from today.
Yeah.
I can't believe how close we are to Mania. But a week from today, Hayden and I will be hosting Over the Top Rope live at Beercade on 105th Street and 82nd Avenue. For you fans here in Edmonton, come hang out, come appear on the show, come grab one of the $4 beers and or menu items. There's going to be tons of members of the Edmonton independent wrestling community there. And Hayden, that is, as usual, where we begin today's episode.
Yeah. Coming off PWA's 18th anniversary show.
And I've sold this multiple times, Hayden, but it always sounds like you're talking poorly about other events when you talk this highly about this event. But this may have been the best event I've ever seen out of the PWA, to be honest with you.
I gotta agree with you. Like, and you say that you have to sell it. You don't have to sell anything from this. You just have to share it with people. Like, I mean,
well, sharing is caring.
And one clip in particular has been shared over and over.
Ha! Nice transition. You're getting really good at those.
You don't.
Obviously, we're all talking about the Spanish Fly, heard around the world. Marky, Michael Richard Blaze, you guys are madmen. I've told the both of you individually, but like, you guys are absolute madmen. That belly to belly Spanish Fly off the top rope through 2 tables has been viewed by everyone. The guys are getting put over by Cody Rhodes. Joey Janela recently just booked Michael Richard Blaze for Spring Break 3. So for all of you fans down there who are independent wrestling fans, like, if this is your first taste of MRB coming up, like, watch out. You guys are in for an absolute treat.
Yeah, we've sung his praises since the first edition of this podcast.
He was my first interview.
Yeah.
He was the first guy I interviewed twice.
That speaks for itself, man. Like,
a lot of milestones.
A premier talent, if not, like, no BS, the premier talent in the Albertan or even just the entire sort of West Coast independent wrestling scene.
Absolutely, man.
But hell, maybe this is his prime to break out as a premier member of the entire independent wrestling scene. That was horribly phrased. Excuse me.
It is what it is, Hayden, but
I tried my best.
You tried your best and you had fun. That's what we're all about here on Over the Top Rope. But obviously we've seen the clip, and let's give a quick shout out as well to Marky, because obviously MRB is only one half of that incredible move. Marky was the first guy to go through a table. The PWA original actually appeared on the first PWA card as a referee, which is like the coolest thing I've ever heard. I'm very, very excited. I'm interviewing him actually pretty soon, which is nice.
Hey, keep an eye out for that.
I would keep an eye out for that one. The guy's got a ton of stories to tell, I'm sure, but going through 2 tables off the top rope on your back, like, bad times.
And this is only his... Was this his 3rd match back, if we're counting his Rumble appearance, I suppose?
Well, and then there's the Calgary shows.
Yeah,
so I believe he's been on... Has there been 1 Calgary show or 2?
I think
there's...
then? I don't know.
I think there's been
1.
2 since he came back. But
So,
either way... Oh, no. There's been the 1 since he came back, because the next one is tomorrow night in Calgary.
And he's already reclaimed his spot as one of the best talents in PWA.
100%, man.
Like,
the guy,
holy hell, it's nice to see the guy back.
The guy was all over the independent scene for a little bit in Alberta. I know he was with RCW for a little bit as well. Unfortunately, I never got to see him there, and I'm almost a little glad. It's one of those things. It'd be like seeing The Undertaker in AEW to make the comparison. Like, he's the PWA original for a reason. He's a guy that to me, I most associate with the PWA more than even a guy like MRB or a Sheik Shabazz or a Duke Durango. Like, the guy's a legend. No other way to put it as far as that goes. We've all seen the clip, Hayden. Let's talk about the match. This was your main event of PWA 18, but, like, let's kick this show off with a banger, because that was an absolutely insane match.
It was a heck of a match. You're right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was a friggin' barn burner, like unreal.
When you've got the 4 guys involved that you did, obviously we've talked about MRB, we've talked about Markey, but we have MRB's fellow Western Lion, Brandon Van Danielson, involved, who may be the toughest son of a bitch in wrestling. Well, like, that guy genuinely scares me.
Well, Jesus, that fall from the top of the ladder straight through a table,
and he got up,
scared the hell out of me. I thought he had broken both elbows.
I wouldn't.
He'd just be fighting as a cripple for the rest of the match.
You know, Hayden, I would be very, very surprised if he wasn't injured, to be honest with you, but I would also be very surprised. Like, that guy could lose an arm completely, and I think he would finish a matchup. Mm-hmm. And then Sheik Shabazz, your PWA champion. PWA champion for a reason. It has now been, July was Night of Champions, so bad math here, but 8 months as champ?
Yeah, in that ballpark.
8 months on top. The guy who's made a seamless transition from one of the most hated men to one of the most beloved men in the PWA. Always a guy I'm excited to see. And a guy who I think is getting criminally underpraised for this match, to be honest with you, because he was excellent. This was probably one of my favorite matches I've watched him in, and the guy's had some absolute barn burners over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it it just goes to show how great this match was. There was just so much coming out of it in photos, videos, in media, I guess the right way to say it.
Well, and actually I do have to take the second there to give my plug for Target Photography, because they came out, they've taken photos for a couple of sports teams and that sort of stuff that I've worked for years, and they came out to the PWA show. If you guys want to check out some of the best shots in action photography and sports action photography, in sports entertainment action photography, I would highly recommend checking them out. All the photos are online. They've got like 900 of them. They're insane. So I have to give my shout out there, because, yeah, like you said, the media is going absolutely nuts over the match. Like
we already talked about the Spanish Fly, but I mean, even Shabazz's power bombing Blaze through the table right there at the end of the match.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know what he calls it, but it's almost like a razor's edge, like
a crucifix
toss,
power bomb, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy's a monster.
Yep.
Like, go back to MRB, the guy pulling off a moonsault while holding a ladder.
Jesus.
They're madmen, and they all brought something unique to the match. This may have been one of my favorite matches I've ever watched out of the PWA, but it's pretty insane to me, Hayden, to jump around a little bit. That I guess we should finish here first. Sheik Shabazz retains, as he should. Some events coming up after the match, but we'll talk about that near the end of the segment. The other match that I really, really want to talk about here is your, I guess, intermission main event. The match right before the intermission. Colton Kelly taking on the Thickness, Reed Matthews, in a last man standing match. Some history for those who aren't Albertan wrestling fans and listening to this podcast. This is probably, I would say honestly, 99% sure. I just can't bring everything off the top of my head. This is my favorite storyline I've ever gotten to watch develop through Albertan wrestling. To be quite honest with you, the breakup of the Millennial Rebels has been such a well done overall storyline. Like, this was, I don't know if it was exactly a year. I don't remember the exact date of the 17th anniversary show, but it has been nearly exactly a year since Kenneth Anthony, Colton Kelly, and the Millennial Rebels turned on the Thickness after losing their tag team championships. And since then, watching Reed Matthews, number one, watching his development as a babyface, like the pop that guy got when he came back at Night of Champions last year was insane. I couldn't have been more excited to see him back. He's a heck of a wrestler. Even just going through with the developments of the addition of the Titan at the Resolution Rumble last year. And having him subsequently align with the Thickness and all of the little details that have gone into this, Hayden. I literally have my quote here as, this was truly, if you're going to call this, some may argue that Night of Champions is the bigger card. This, for me, is always my favorite show of the year. If you're going to call this the PWA's quote-unquote WrestleMania, even if you were to compare it, I know it's spring, but their SummerSlam, one of their big shows of the year, this was truly a WrestleMania match. The way they've built to it, and man, the way they executed it.
It was an immaculate build-up, and I don't mean this in a negative light at all. That was an absolutely brutal match. Coming right up next to us, he got tossed down, I think, 5 rows of bleachers.
Yep, slammed onto some stairs, like bleacher stairs. This isn't any side. I don't even know if they've got stairs, I'll be honest with you.
Well, not even down the stairs themselves, but the bleachers. So,
yeah,
I guess just the bleachers themselves. But, for years straight, people want to see Reed Matthews get his revenge on what remains of the Millennial Rebels.
Yep.
And Colton Kelly. And
he's been very tactical in his approach too. I've liked that every move in it has had a purpose, whether it be going immediately after the Mayhem Championship last month in that tables match at Fruition. The way he's approached this is obviously he's a heavy hitter in the ring, but he's a lot smarter than people give him credit for, because the way he approached all of this was it was a very cool storyline for a guy to get to watch.
It was well thought out.
Yep.
And it was beautifully executed.
Methodical.
Yep, methodical. There's the word.
You got to give props to Colton Kelly as well, too, because, coming out in this match, man, obviously he did not win the Mayhem Championship, which I would have been disappointed with whoever lost this match. It's, because it ends.
Yeah.
Sad face. But I think that Colton Kelly put on an absolute hell of a performance. Like you said, he took some absolutely insane punishment from the thickness, but then you look back on some of the stuff he pulled off. He was the guy who pulled out the bag of tacks. He took a pile driver to tacks.
Yeah.
He got green misted. He back sentoned through off the top rope through a table to the outside on the thickness.
He is a crazy bastard.
I have no other way to put it, man. It's not very often at even a family-friendly show, notwithstanding, at any independent show, that you get a last man standing match like this outside of bringing in barbed wire ropes, which I'm sure was discussed and then turned down. But they were absolutely brutal. Like you said, it was some complain that matches with stipulations like this don't fully live up to the stipulation. This one exceeded it and more.
Yeah, no question.
So, like I said, obviously Colton Kelly not winning the Mayhem Championship. The thickness, Reed Matthews retaining. Hell of a match, Hayden. Anything else? I guess it's your turn. I brought up the first two.
Well, I think a logical next step is just to touch on the other half of the Millennial Rebels. And
it's the logical next step for you.
Oh, I'm trying to phrase it out correctly, Spencer. Match your level of eloquence.
Thank
but
you.
I was just going to mention Kenneth Anthony versus the Titan. If we want to talk about punishment, here's another punishment, but in a much, much, much quicker match.
I hate Kenneth Anthony, and I mean that in the most positive ways. Not only does he come out in a Connor McDavid jersey, but he takes it off and reveals a Johnny Gaudreau jersey, but a Johnny Gaudreau jersey put on backwards. So he's got the big 13 on the front. I'm sitting here going through CFL stats trying to figure out who it is. It's just one of those things that annoys you when you see something like that, because there's no way that in all his dickish glory, for lack of a better way to put it, that he didn't look at that jersey, say, yeah, I'm going to put this thing on backwards. I know it'll bug some people, and put it on backwards.
Please turn it around.
Please, Kenneth Anthony.
This is really bothering
very
me.
Frustrated.
Come on.
The other thing, comes out and he says, I am going to not only beat the Titan, but knock him out with one punch. Now, Kenneth Anthony, I would have to estimate, I've never met him, I'd have to estimate he's taller than me. He's a fairly well-built guy. When you compare him to a guy like the Titan, who, again, by my estimations, is about 6'8", 6'9", build at 310 pounds, the guy's a monster. You're going to one-punch him. Now, the guy's beard is thicker than your fist.
Yeah. You're going to have a tough time getting through that beard.
And I have to appreciate the confidence, man. Like I said, Kenneth Anthony, and I said it in my recap, actually, which, again, you can find for my cheap plug on wincolumnsports.ca. But I said in the recap, Kenneth Anthony is one of the smartest wrestlers out there to me. I think that even in last month's match at Fruition where he lost his Mayhem Championship, there were multiple times where he showed that he thought out wrestling very well. Because, like I've said here, the flip side of going up against the Titan, like, I often talk about, like, the agility the Titans got for a big man, but a quick big man is not going to be as quick as just a quick guy. You know what I mean? I may not have explained that the best, but Kenneth Anthony obviously has the speed advantage there. I think that he thinks wrestling very well. Obviously he's got the veteran experience over the Titan. So all of that to me, like, maybe a little more than most, but I thought he genuinely had a chance. But as soon as you say you're going to knock a guy like that out with one punch, you don't want to motivate a 310-pound dude.
The biggest thing is it's a question of reach. Like, it's a physical impossibility.
It's not a question of where it grip it. It's a simple question of weight ratios.
And that's exactly it. Well, not like that, but...
A 1-pound bird cannot carry...
Like, try punching something that is 6 inches out of your reach. You embarrass yourself. Like, even if you're standing in a room alone, you just realize, I can't punch that high.
He got a shot in. I'll give him that.
Yeah, one.
And a good shot.
Well,
unfortunately, it was not the shot that knocked the Titan out.
I think you have to, like, hit the temple or some strategic...
The temple, there's also a piece in the jaw. I have no experience with fighting, Hayden, so I can't really speak to it. But I know if you punch someone in the face very hard, I don't think it matters where you hit him, but I don't think that the Titan is the guy that you can punch in the face hard enough to knock out anywhere.
I wholeheartedly agree.
What a monster, man. I've loved watching that guy wrestle. Like I said, it's kind of tough to be 100% accurate when we can't go to all the shows just based on the fact they're in Calgary. And I try to keep up as often as I can because they do a great job. They've also got a Pivot Share account, pwa.pivotshare.ca. I believe it's a .ca or .com. I apologize for not knowing that off the top of my head. But it's tough to 100% keep up with shows. So as far as I know, the Titan debuted in last year's Resolution Rumble. And since then, the guy has just improved and improved and improved. Not only...
With each match.
Yeah.
Like,
there's nothing I enjoy more than an athletic big dude.
Mm-hmm. Sort of like a Braun Strowman where he's sort of... excuse me. Where he's just sort of not even shed some weight, but just sort of lost some healthy weight. Slimmed down, gotten some speed.
He's the same animal, but a different beast.
He just keeps getting better. What else can you say?
Speaking of Braun Strowman, just a sidetrack here for a second. Did you see that they did like a WWE Where Are They Now today on Nicholas?
Oh.
It was absolutely fantastic. It was like a 4-minute video they put up on their social media, and they interviewed like Nicholas's 10-year-old friends, and they interviewed Nicholas. It was fantastic. You know what? I will say WWE often shits the bed on their social media, but sometimes they do some really, really great things. Like I wouldn't put WWE against anyone as far as, or I wouldn't want to put anyone up against WWE, in terms of video production for some of their stuff.
Oh, I completely agree. They're aces at it.
I was interested and compelled by a documentary about a joke tag team champion.
Well, we have some pretty good video content as well, Spencer. We can't disparage ourselves.
That's not us, Hayden. We're not made for video. Backbreaker Media, 100%. Even PWA's Pivot Share, 100%. I just mentioned them already. That's why I didn't want to bring them up again.
Just
even out the plugs.
Beat ourselves up.
Let's get back to the Alberta wrestling scene. Otherwise, Hayden, you and I could be on for another off-the-rails episode of Over the Top Rope. Another championship at stake on Saturday, March 23rd. The PWA Commonwealth Championship. And Sean Moore, one of the best wrestlers. Again, I feel like we repeat ourselves sometimes about this guy, but he is easily one of the best wrestlers I've got to watch in my time watching the PWA. Yeah. I enjoy the hell out of the guy. And no other way I can put it.
Not new to the PWA, but still fresh.
Familiarizing.
Yeah, familiarizing. Like it still feels like we haven't even scratched the surface of what this guy can do and what he's capable of at this point.
He's very, very good as well. I've only gotten to see clips from HIW out in Saskatchewan, but also wrestles out there. He's a fan. Anytime you guys get a chance to watch Sean Moore or an opportunity to do it, do it. The guy's fantastic. He's almost to me like approaching that level of an MRB where you look like, how the hell do more people not know about you? You know? He's fantastic in ring. Like, people talk about MRB pulling off the 450. Like, Sean Moore pulled off a beautiful 450 to end the match here. Spoiler alert, Sean Moore retained. However, facing off with him in this match are some guys that, much like the main event, I think offered a really unique mix for the match. We had Sean Moore, obviously, versus Kid Chocolate Mo Jabari, a personal favorite of mine, versus Spaceman Barry Grayson, who I believe you were watching for the first time, versus El Asesino versus Maxton Flexwell in what was advertised as a 5-man scramble.
But quickly became a I don't even know what it's called, a 6-way.
Yeah, a 6-man match. I don't know what you would technically call the match. C'est la vie. When Nightmare number 4 made his long-anticipated return to the PWA ring, as I believe the last time we saw the Nightmare, it was Nightmare number 6, which two very, very different wrestlers.
It's like HB pencils.
There's number 1, number 2. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Not number 3. Those are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But Nightmare number 4 added to the match, so we then have, let's call it a 6-man scramble.
Well said, Spencer.
Is what we're going to call that one.
Scramble. What a stupid word.
I think it's fine.
I disagree. But
Scrambles. Wasn't that the cat name on South Park?
I can't remember.
I feel like that's why I've got an affinity to it. Either way, Nightmare enters. I do have to give not a quick shout out. I'm sure I'll elaborate on the guy a ton. Thaddeus Archer the third with some stellar commissionership and allowing Nightmare number 4 to enter the match. It's always fun having him in any match, regardless of which Nightmare it is, because it's something actually I talked about with Maniac. Like, you've got to have the entertainment aspect still. And not to say that the 5 guys who were previously in the match weren't entertaining, but the Nightmare, for lack of a better way to put it, is a comedy wrestler. And when you get something like that involved in a match that really is like a technically incredibly well wrestled match, it does add that extra element that I think made this go from a good match to a thoroughly good match. The only reason I don't say great is, man, that main event.
Yeah. Well, when you have a lot of moving pieces, it's always nice to have ones that are, a bit different from each other.
I completely agree.
Like, and not to say that even though he is considered a comedy wrestler, I suppose, like, Nightmare's still a great wrestler. Or good, at the very least, I guess I should say.
We didn't get to see a ton of them, though, after, like, literally a five simultaneously super kicked.
Yeah, but he played his part perfectly, and as did everybody else. But when you have the level of talent that you did, like Sean Moore and Mo Jabari in particular, like, you need something to break it up a little bit. This was the perfect way to do that.
I think that Sean Moore and Mo Jabari, again, I'm going to talk about the other guys here shortly, but I think those two have just proved, not only to myself, but I even think to others, like, why they're two of the rising stars in Alberta. At the Alberta and beyond, I should say, especially in Sean Moore's case. Those two have such an insane chemistry together. I think that Jabari was even a little extra fired up because Sean Moore was the guy who took the championship off of him. He's held it since then. And having the two of those guys go in a ring, I would be happy to watch those guys in a singles match anytime. It's one of those things where they just match up terrifically together.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So it was great to see those two get a bit of time to work together again. But Barry Grayson, Spaceman Barry Grayson, to use the full nomenclature, great performance.
You are correct. This was my first time seeing him, but great first impression. Like, I can't say that he's the greatest wrestler I've seen just because I haven't seen enough of him.
I'd agree.
But a great introduction to him, I gotta say.
And he is another guy, like, much like the Titan, we talk about how quickly people seem to improve when they're in the PWA. I don't know anything about his prior training. I believe he was a Storm student, but I really can't verify that one.
I think you mentioned that.
But, and again, can't really verify 100% when he debuted because I don't know if it was a Calgary or an Edmonton thing. But since watching him first wrestle, the first time I saw him, it was him and Zoe Sager going up against Kat Von Hees, and if I remember correctly, it was Bobby Sharp, one of the members of Body Break. And they looked really, really good together. And then, because then Michael Allen and Richard Clark interfered, and Chris Steele came out for the save.
Oh, look at that.
Right? I miss Chris Steele.
Well, as we said,
taking on a backstage role.
we'll get to him later. Conspicuous in his absence from the show.
Yeah. Save it for the podcast.
Yep.
Wait, that's what we're doing.
Well, later on in the podcast.
Great match, though. Just to get back to Barry Grayson, I thought that the guy put on my favorite performance of his. That's the best way I can put it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The guy is absolutely insane. Like, the only comparison I have for most moves, I don't know a lot of technical maneuvers, but it was a very, like, whisper in the wind looking maneuver that he pulled off coming back into the ring as well. The guy's super athletic, and I'm very excited to see him keep going. El Assassino is sick.
First time seeing him, too.
He is much, much better. I don't know if he just took time off or what. This was the first time I'd watched him in the PWA for a bit. I think he's even wrestled down in Calgary as well. He was the guy, actually. He wrestled Jeff Cobb earlier in the week. I think it was even the night before for HIW. He made an appearance.
Very cool.
So anytime you've got a guy going up against sort of the quote-unquote name talent, it proves that a promotion or a promoter or someone has some supreme faith in you, and there's a reason it's deserved on his end. Like, I am not ashamed to admit that I've maybe taken the guy a little bit, not for granted, but underestimated the guy a bit, because this was, again, I feel like I'll say about a lot of people about the 18th anniversary show, but this was quite easily my favorite performance I've seen of the guy. The guy knows what he's doing in a ring, man, and he it seems like every move he makes in a ring, he makes with a purpose. You know, I love somebody who you can noticeably see as planning out their next move or thinking about it or just sort of taking a tactical approach to stuff. It's, again, like it's one of the reasons I love the Millennial Rebels match. It's one of the reasons I thoroughly enjoyed this one too.
Yeah.
Like, and that step up Enziguri off the ropes was nuts.
It was crazy. And same deal as Spaceman Barry Grayson. This was my first time seeing El Assassino.
El Assassino.
Assassino.
Because I also know I was pronouncing it wrong prior, and I was corrected when he was announced.
I knew Asino was wrong, but I was just trying to slide under it.
El Argyle Casino.
I've seen that many times.
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah, but once again, like I can't speak to anything beyond that, but he was freaking excellent in this match.
Maxton Flexwell, I really don't have a ton to say about him other than the guy's got a bright future.
Yeah, we've
really liked him a lot.
I think we mentioned him.
Lately,
Mentioned him on the past 2 or 3 podcasts.
Yeah,
I think
looked really, really good at fruition as well when I saw him there. And again, just another noticeable step up. Very, very excited to see where he goes from here. As I mentioned at the start of this little segment, Sean Moore retains. It's fantastic to see that guy carrying a championship because you always know a championship comes with certain expectations. If you were a champion and not having great matches, like, I think you have to. You just have to be someone who can have a great match for the most part.
Yeah.
And Sean Moore can have a great match with a piece of wood, I would think, by this point.
that plank from Ed, and Eddie. Whatever it was called.
An apt comparison, Hayden.
I don't even remember what it was called.
It was
I think it was
Ed
just
and
plank.
Eddie.
I think it was just plank. Wasn't
Mr.
it?
Plank, I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I can't recall.
Mr. Plank.
That's
That's
just
my name. That name again is Mr. Plank. Ring of Honor World TV Championship match, Hayden.
Great transition, Spencer.
I completely agree.
Transition. Excuse me.
Hayden, this was a match that I've been excited for since the second it was announced. Jeff Cobb, easily one of my favorite independent wrestlers out there. Quite possibly, if I was to go down in power rank, quite possibly a top 10 wrestler for me.
Number 8 or number 7.
And I've got my very clear top 5, and then I've also got, like, it's once you hit the 5 through 10, that's where things start to get hard.
Yeah.
So that's a different episode for a different day.
Those shift all the time.
Exactly. But taking on, again, another personal favorite, and someone will take the opportunity to announce is my next guest on Conversations with Love on Backbreaker Media, coming out next Wednesday, the Omen Gabriel.
Yeah.
What a barn burner.
Essentially God.
I would have to say.
PWA.
Well, he is an undead vampire. He is immortal. So I think you've covered off at least a few bases as far as the God portion goes.
I think God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Omnipotent.
Omnipotent.
Yeah, pardon me.
He's omnipotent.
Pardon. Delete that.
No.
Yes.
I'm leaving it in there. Haha. Said Spencer because we're recording this the day before it's supposed to come out. Doesn't want to edit.
Just waiting for you to delete that, Spencer.
That's completely fine. I can carry a podcast. I do my first one alone because he didn't show up.
Well, I was going to say omnipotent, but excuse me. People trip up their words sometimes.
Happens all the time, Hayden.
Yep.
Ring of Honor World TV Championship on the line, though, in this match. It's very, very cool to me when a champion is willing to put their title on the line at a show that's not their home promotion. Like, I love the idea of a fighting champion. Not even the idea of a fighting champion. I love a fighting champion. And Jeff Cobb coming to the PWA, coming to HIW, going to, I'm sure, various other independent promotions out there, and defending his championship for me is incredible.
What's the nice thing about Ring of Honor? Even when Jay Lethal showed up, I think it was 2 years ago, or I think it may have been, I think it was the 16th anniversary show, if I remember correctly. But he defended his Ring of Honor World Championship. Outside of that, we've seen the TV title defended a few times.
That was Night of Champions, I think, wasn't it the title versus title match with MRB?
I believe it was.
Because I know he's been here a couple times, so I could just be confusing it.
But I know he has as well. But I think he only had one appearance as Ring of Honor World Champion. But I think you are correct. I think it was Night of Champions, not the 16th anniversary show. Yeah. Well, now I have to punish myself. But the same thing is he put his title on the line, and that always adds an extra level, regardless of how hyped you are for the match initially. It just adds another layer. And man, even if this was a non-title match, like this was number 3 match of the night. Yeah. But like the same thing as your number 5 to 10 is like those are all more or less interchangeable.
They all flow. That's exactly it. When people talk about that's the one thing I love making the comparison. WrestleMania talks about having 5 main events and all of them suck. Just to
such a pessimist, Spencer.
Just to over exaggerate it. This advertises its main event, and you have 3 that you can argue, 3 at least. Mm-hmm. I should continue here. That you could arguably say were main event matches.
Dig.
Right? I think that this may have been the most anticipated match for me, just because I knew the least what was going to happen. You can pretty well guarantee, like, you knew you were in for a great match. But this isn't something like the Millennial Rebels matches where you sort of knew what you were going to get out of a last man standing match between 2 people who hated each other, or the Titan and Kenneth Anthony, where it's literally David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
The main event you knew was going to be insane. This match you knew was going to be great, but like I talked to Gabriel about it on the podcast. Like, he wrestled Jeff Cobb once 10 years ago in a tag team match. So outside of that, there's no history, there's no prior experience, there's no nothing. So when you go into a match proverbially blind to what could potentially happen, those are the most exciting matches for me.
No question. And that just makes this match all the more impressive. Like, these guys went to town on each other for 20 minutes.
Did you see Gabriel's chest at the end of the night?
Yeah, I remember that well.
Oh, man.
Bruised to shit.
It's looking like there's that picture of Daniel Bryan after is it the Greatest Royal Rumble?
Yeah, or even like Triple H when he tore his pec. Just maybe not on that level.
No, can you believe that Triple H is like, his career was on the line 6 months ago when he tore his pec as a 48-year-old man in wrestling.
Well, he and John Cena have both had miraculous pec recoveries, and you have to wonder what goes into it.
Midnight workouts?
Yeah. Well, okay.
midnight
rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Why don't you just go on the day like a normal human being?
I do rehab 6 times a day. I'm on a 6-time-a-day schedule. Can you imagine that? Could you imagine in like a completely objective sense? Okay, so somebody is trying to work out their pec. Imagine if this situation played out at like a swimming pool, right? Like, somebody tore their pec, but they worked really, really hard so that they could come back to fight another man to risk their career.
I mean, people have their own motivations, Spencer.
I want to work really, really hard to potentially never do this again.
Yeah. What a waste. And then to
what a waste.
Yeah, it's another conversation, but I could feasibly see it happening. But I don't know.
Either way.
Good for Triple H. I'm more impressed than anything.
The guy's a monster.
But back to the match. like as we said, it was phenomenal.
Those two beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
And obviously I would have loved to have seen Gabriel defeat Jeff Cobb and bring the Ring of Honor World Television Championship to Alberta. Unfortunately, taking the defeat after a tour of the islands, which, man, to me is quite easily the coolest finisher out there right now.
Yeah, insane strength on Jeff Cobb's part. That guy is deezed.
100%. Big dude.
Yeah.
Very excited to watch him wrestle, hopefully back here in the future. And then last but not least, I think this was the third match on the card, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
For the PWA Tag Team Championships, we have the team of Body Break, Kat Von Hees, Michael Allen, Richard Clark. Sorry, I tried to do it as well as I could. And Bobby Sharp versus the team of the Above Average Joes.
Yep.
Zoe Sager, Aiden Adams, and Kenny Stryker, taking on the PWA Tag Team Champions, The League, featuring Davey O'Doyle, Braden Parsons, and Kylie Morgan.
Well done, right off the dome too.
Thank you very much.
Very impressive, Spencer.
This match was cacophony.
Yeah.
When you've got 9 people involved, I should also mention this was an elimination match, but when you've got 9 people like this involved in a match that obviously it's the same ring size as it would be for a singles match, you know, there's a lot going on. There's insane superplexes into 7 people, just to give Michael Allen, Richard Clark his proper dues for that insanity. Mm-hmm. There's Kat Von Hees, the most impressive thing I saw maybe all night. Like, Kat Von Hees was holding Zoe Sager up in like a stalling suplex and literally squatting her. It was nuts.
Insane strength.
You know, and even outside of just the stuff like that, you've got a guy like Bobby Sharp in the ring who, every time I watch that guy wrestle, I appreciate something new about him.
Held that suplex from the middle rope was unbelievable.
Yeah, the guy's
right to the outside. I guess you have to mention that it was to the outside.
Yep.
Not to the middle.
Just an absolute monster. Aiden Adams and Kenny Stryker. Number 1, headbands. Yep. Great piece of merchandise. Not nearly enough people sell. And Zoe Sager now, I suppose, as a new official member of the Above Average Joes. Was very, very great to see them wrestle again. Just, they're so entertaining in their own right. Not only are they great wrestlers, that has to be said, but they bring a smile to your face. Yeah. For lack of a cheesier way to put it.
Well, they've been doing it consistently for the past year and a half, as far as I remember. I can't even remember when they came together as a team.
That's exactly.
I think it was a year and a half ago.
It might be around then. You may be correct. I believe when I started going back to PWA shows consistently, they were together.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing for me.
Either way, Aiden, Kenny, let us know. But great match on that, and then the tag team champions, The League. I think let's start it off here with Kylie Morgan, someone who is in a very similar role to Zoe Sager was a couple of months ago, where she's someone that I think this was her 3rd match of hers I got to watch, and again, every time you watch, there's a major step taken. Mm-hmm. Thoroughly enjoyed watching her wrestle. I love The League. Yeah. No other way to put it, man.
Davey O'Doyle and Braden Parsons,
They have grown on me so much. Number 1, great shirts. They've got some new merchandise out.
Great shirts.
I would highly recommend checking
Great
those
names. Out. Great wrestlers. Or not names, but like just the name of their tandem.
Dude, O'Doyle rules. Anytime you get to say O'Doyle rules at a wrestling show, it's fantastic. And Braden Parsons, O'Doyle rules. Braden Parsons, I think for me, was the quiet MVP of this match. Like, I don't know what else you would describe it as. Again, like sort of a wasteland style move. He hit on Zoe Sager to end the match, and then drags Kylie Morgan over to get the pin and brings the ref back in. Like, he's a very smart wrestler.
Yeah.
Hell of a job. You can never fault someone for something like that, I don't think. If you can take advantage of the rules, great. Yeah. I think the rules need to be followed unless they don't have to be followed.
That just goes back to our our earlier conversation about the 6-way for the Commonwealth Championship, the 6-way scramble. Pardon me.
Thank you.
Yes. But like when you have this many moving parts, like when you have 9 people in the ring concurrently, like there are going to be some smaller moving parts that are still essential, like things that just move other things. Braden Parsons played that perfectly.
I couldn't agree more with you, Hayden. Now, obviously, the league retaining their championship here. A couple of developments coming out, and I'm very happy that you brought up Mark Michael Allen, Richard Clark. A lot of developments around him. So Body Break was the first team to be eliminated in this match.
Yep.
Michael Allen, Richard Clark seemingly walks out on the team, like physically walks out of the ring, looks to be heading towards the backstage area, and out of nowhere, Bobby Sharp hits a massive, massive super kick to Kat Von Hees, which, like, they've been aligned together for years as far as I can remember, man. Like, there's not a time I can remember Bobby Sharp wrestling purely by himself. Kat was always either accompanying him, he was accompanying her, whatever works out there. So obviously the massive super kick there shocks everyone. Michael Allen, Richard Clark, I don't know if it's a ploy, if something developed in ring where there was like basically a choose her or me moment, whatever that may work out to be, but he goes in, gives Bobby Sharp a hug. They seemingly reunite. In a side bit here, Hayden, too, Bobby Sharp, #1 contender down in Calgary, is wrestling Sheik Shabazz tomorrow for the PWA Championship.
Very cool. I had no idea.
There's your fun little tidbit. But after the show, or after the main event, I should say, I guess the first thing that happens, Hayden, I'll let you touch on this one because you were the one who ominously mentioned the name earlier. Your thoughts on the show ending?
I don't want to say shocking. Like, it definitely was out of left field, but
Shocking is an overused word.
yeah, like it, and it wasn't shocking. Not a lot of people were surprised. Or I guess I can't speak for other people, but like where else do you go but up after breaking up with Kat Von Hees? Like, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but like it was strategic. Like, you break up for a reason.
You had a plan there.
Exactly. And like it was a nice plan to see. I'm excited to see him eventually wrestle for the PWA Championship, but he made his intentions known, and this could be a climb up the charts for the guy.
I completely agree, Hayden. I think so. For those who didn't get the chance to watch, Michael Allen, Richard Clark following the match, everybody is out ringside because they're confused by a helmeted or masked, or however you want to describe it,
Masked.
Assailant with a briefcase comes out, hammers Sheik in the back, hammers the PWA original in the back with a briefcase, and then bursts off into the night. So Hayden, earlier on you mentioned Chris Steele. Why?
Conspicuous in his absence is what we said earlier. That still stands. Like, with the retirement of his tag team partner, that really left nothing for the guy. And that breaks my heart because Chris Steele could be considered the heart of PWA, or at the very least, the steel vertebrae-infused backbone of the PWA.
Beautifully put, Hayden. And you say you're not eloquent.
When you're passed over for one of the anniversary shows for something that, because I believe that he was at the first PWA show.
I don't 100% know on that one.
That's why I said I believe. I think so. But either way, like you're a multi-time champion. You're an integral part of PWA. And
it's something you did admit, like you
something you
helped
make sacrifices for.
Exactly.
And you get no acknowledgement, and you just keep getting passed over, and that breeds frustration. And you know, how else do you take it out without damaging yourself personally? You put on a mask and you nail two guys in the back of the head with a briefcase. Well played. But
it really could be anybody. I think, hey, you make a lot of logical points on Chris Steele. And selfishly, I would love to see it be him purely, again, like you said, because to me, he's such an integral part of the Prairie Wrestling Alliance. He's a fantastic wrestler. Love watching the guy in the ring. And if this is a way to get him back doing that, excellent. Another couple of options that I did have on that end, however, and again, maybe someone who's been a little longer in his conspicuous absence here. I know that the guy was removed from his position due to the hands of the 1-0 Big Bad Boris. But former PWA Commissioner Andy Anderson has been popping up a lot more lately. He will be at Pro Wrestling YEG hosting an open challenge. He's appeared for various other independent areas and promotions around Edmonton. I would love to see, for much of the same reasons that I just mentioned, about wanting to see Chris Steele back in a ring. Andy Anderson's a personal favorite of mine all time.
Yeah.
Bring him back. And the other option that was actually suggested to me by a couple of people that didn't even cross my mind off the bat, a returning Mephisto.
Like, that guy wasn't 8 feet tall and 400 pounds of pure muscle. I don't think it was Mephisto.
You can't teach that.
Mephistopheles, yes. But you actually make a lot of great points as well. Like, I didn't even consider Andy Anderson. But, like, you get pushed out as commissioner. Why would you come back for your old job? Why wouldn't you come back and go for the championship?
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you there, Hayden. And I arguably think if the intent would be to come back and do damage, you can do a lot more damage as the champion than you can as the commissioner.
That's true.
You know? To continue on that, however, after the masked assailant, who we cannot identify, was running off, everybody comes out to ringside. Michael Allen Richard Clark himself comes and hits a cutter on everybody and their mother. Probably 15 people in the ring, 15 people went down. The guy absolutely laid everybody out, grabs a microphone, and demands of Thaddeus Archer III, who has now made his way down to ringside into the ring, a PWA championship opportunity against Sheik Shabazz. Now, Thaddeus initially declined that. It's nice to see that he wanted to try and hold his morals there. But at that point, man, like, you got to be careful, because immediately upon saying no, he's immediately like put into the hold for a cutter. And it looks like Mark is going for number 16 when Kurt Sorokin comes to ringside, grabs Thaddeus, and after a series of conversations, it's confirmed. Like, April 20th, we are going to get Michael Allen Richard Clark versus Sheik Shabazz at the Northgate Lions Senior Center, or potentially Bobby Sharp should he win the championship on Saturday night. Whoever it is, I'm genuinely excited. Michael Allen Richard Clark is an underappreciated wrestler. It's regardless of the means, the ends were justified, and I think that it's going to be a banger of a match regardless of who he goes up against.
Yeah, no question. I hate to phrase it like this, but I'm excited to see this next chapter in Mark's career.
Hayden, I couldn't agree more with you there, man. Like, it was a fantastic show. I think it was a fantastic closing to a fantastic show. And coming up here in the future, Michael Allen Richard Clark, poised to be your number one contender in Edmonton. Hayden, I guess before we close it out here on this edition of Over the Top Rope prior to WrestleMania, any thoughts, any highlights, any lowlights, anything that you would particularly like to bring up prior to the closing of this week's OTTR?
More highlights than lowlights. Like, very few lowlights. The only one that I could think of is really just a 5-way for the Commonwealth Championship. Just because I wish that it could have gone on longer. Though I see the purpose of more winning quickly. But past that, I mean, like, the tag team triple threat was outstanding, and Reed Matthews versus Colton Kelly was just something in and of itself. Like, not a death match, but definitely comparable. Like, just the tiniest notch below.
As close as you're gonna get in a family-friendly show.
And it wasn't intended to be one as well.
Exactly.
Like, it was meant to be brutal, but not on that level. Because you are right, it is a family-friendly environment.
Parental guidance is advised.
As for you, Spencer, what are your highlights, lowlights?
I don't have a low light, man. Like, again, like, the biggest quote-unquote complaint, I would have loved to have seen more, just purely based on how good the show was. I wish there were a few matches that would have gone on longer, but that is what it is. Hayden, I'm very, very excited. We've got the next PWA event in Edmonton coming up on April 20th. Very excited to be checking that one out with you, my friend. As we close out this week's edition of Over the Top Rope, first I want to thank you for appearing again. My co-host, my brother of discussion, very excited to have you here. Where can people find the fine content that Hayden Love provides online?
A couple different places. I mean, you can find us once again on SoundCloud, Podbean, iTunes Podcasts, or just on windcolumnsports.ca for all your news. How does that go again?
Previews, reviews, and breaking news
I can't do it like you
in
do it.
Albertan wrestling. And I, of course, Spencer Love, your co-host on the show. Hayden, at SpennyLove _ WCS, or follow us at WC Sports CA on the old Twitter machine. You can find us across pretty well every piece of social media. But once again, this has been the flagship podcast of the WCSN, Over the Top Rope. Don't forget to come and say hi to Hayden and I at Beercade YEG, the official sponsor of Over the Top Rope, as well as the various podcasts here on the Win Column Sports Network. Come say hi. We're very excited to be checking out WrestleMania at the home of Edmonton Wrestling on 105th Street and 82nd Avenue. The Brothers of Discussion will be there with Over the Top Rope Live. We hope you are there too. Thanks for joining us
You really do.
on this week's OTTR.